Your voice matters. Your vote matters. And your story matters. This is Erika Sugarmon, Unfiltered. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Erika Sugarmon, Unfiltered. Welcome back. A new year, a new me, and hopefully you all enjoyed your holiday season, and it's time to get serious. These are serious times that we're living in, and I know that there are individuals out there who might have housing insecurities, food insecurities, health insecurities. And so we decided to bring on the one and only Director Bromley. She's over community services. But before we get started, I would like to say a few things real quickly. In 2022, when I first became commissioner, I believe, Bromley, were you the administrator?
Yeah,
You
I think I was the deputy director at that
Deputy
time.
director, right. And so when she came before the commission, she was appointed by the mayor. And I want to explain how that goes, the process. So you have a chief executive at the local level, state level, and the federal level. At the local level, it's the mayor. At the state level, it's the governor. At the federal level, it's the president. So they have the appointment power. But the appointments must be approved by the legislative branch. And so when Bromley came before the commission, she was appointed to this position she holds now, and she's director of community services. And so she had to come before the commission, which is the legislative branch. And so I don't know, we vetted her. You know, when the mayor appoints someone, it's crucial that they have the background, the experience, the expertise to carry out their duties. And so I hope we weren't too harsh on you, but you are the right person at the right time, and you're a great fit because you have the certain demeanor that is needed for that position. So I just want to say that hopefully we're too harsh. Again, you're the right person for the job. You're doing a great job. And so I just real quickly, I would love for you to just give the listening audience a little bit about you, where you began and how you got here.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Sugarman, for having me on. And no, you all were not. I mean, of course, I was nervous, but you weren't. No, it wasn't that bad to get through the appointment process. Y'all asked really good questions, and I keep them in mind even today because I want to make sure that whatever residents are asking us, whatever our commissioners are asking us, that we are staying on top of that because that's obviously what the top of your mind. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our best to be responsive to you and to our residents. So a little bit about me. I'm an attorney by trade. So I started off doing victims' rights work, crime victims' rights work in 2002. I graduated from law school. So I've been doing this for a very long time, mostly worked in victim services my whole career. And then I ended up in Shelby County. If you haven't met Deputy Chief Administrative Officer Dorothy Griffin yet, I'm sure most people listening have met her because everyone knows who that is. And I had one interview with this woman remotely, this is a long time ago in 2017. One interview, and she talked me into moving to Memphis to run the Crime Victims and Rape Crisis Center.
Oh, wow.
And I had never been in Memphis before in my life. And I just moved here sight unseen. That's her power. Anyway, so moved here, ran that for about 5 years until I became the deputy director and then ultimately the director. And that's it wasn't really my intent. It was just that Dorcas got promoted. She was the former director of the division. And so I just happened at that point had enough experience within the division. So the mayor asked if I would step up.
Well, we're glad you did because you have a huge heart. Some of the programs that you started or you expanded, which are also dear to my heart. And I just want to start off with the youth service bit because just the other week, we started a new semester with new students. And the one complaint I heard from them is that they're suffering with mental health issues. And in the school system, there should be a counselor at every school, and there's not. We share counselors, so we get a counselor maybe once or twice a week. This is it right here.
Yep. So it's a Youth Connect program. It's 100% free. I know other people say free, but they still take insurance. We are serious, 100% free, 14 to 17, I believe. I don't have it in front of me right now, but essentially Google Youth Connect. It'll come up pretty quickly. All of the counselors that are free mental health therapists, they're all on a website. And so young people can go on. Here's the cool thing about Youth Connect. It was designed specifically by and for youth. We
Mm,
were very intentional from the beginning to ask youth about every step of the process because we wanted to make sure that we did something that young people actually wanted to take advantage of. I
mhm,
think a lot of times adults just create programs because we think we know what they want, but we don't actually ask them. So we
that's
were
right.
really intentional in asking them. And one of the things that they said was, they wanna know the vibe of the person that they might be talking to, because they might
Mm,
be a little afraid, if you haven't been to therapy before, you don't know what it is. Maybe you've seen it on TV or whatever, you're just a little nervous. So, we sort of set it up like kinda like a dating site where you go and we don't swipe right or swipe left, but you go through and you can see all of the therapists. You can read a little bio about them, you could watch a little video of them, and you could see who might I vibe with, who might I feel comfortable talking to. It's a really,
mm,
really great program. We've already served, I want to say it was like close to 250 young people already,
mhm.
free mental health services. And we're doing it not only one-on-one individual, but group sessions, but also things like yoga and art
Mm.
therapy and stuff like that as well.
That's great. And it's 10 to 17. But let me ask you this. You said that the youth were involved or instrumental in building this out. So, how did that come about? Whose vision was that? That's wonderful.
So our youth mental health coordinator is named Cache Brooks. Cache is amazing. She used to work at Bridges. We stole her. She understands a lot about youth just from her background. But then we also partner with an organization called the Great Foundation, and
Mhm,
that's a nonprofit here locally. And so with Cache and the ladies, Cafe and Shanika from the Great Foundation,
mhm,
they were just really intentional from the jump of getting young people involved to make sure that that their voices are heard. And so even today they've built out a group of youth ambassadors,
mhm.
because what we also know is that young people don't listen to adults in going to
Right.
therapy. They listen to
Yep.
one another about going to therapy. And so now we have youth ambassadors who normalize the whole process about going to therapy. Like, yeah, it was really helpful for me. Yeah, it was easy. I could do it on Zoom. I could do it, just super easy. And so that's what they've been consistently trying to do, is make sure the young people are involved.
So, if a young person wanted to sign up for this program, where would they go?
Like I said, just Google Youth Connect because you're never going to get the county's website all down. So Google Youth Connect. It'll take you to our Youth and Family Resource Center webpage. All of the information is right there. It's just an online form you fill out, and we'll get back to you within 48 hours.
Wow. Youth Connect.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Okay, the next thing that also is very important, but they're all important, but the aging community. I know in my district, for example, most of my constituents are 60 and above. And so the average age of my constituents is about 68, to be honest. And the aging, that's a huge issue because so many times, the elderly they want to stay independent. They want to live on their own, but they may need some support services. So, what kind of things can they expect from your division?
As part of our division is the Aging Commission of the Mid-South. They work with older adults, like you said, 60 and up, but also adults with disabilities as well. And it's exactly for that purpose, for them to remain as independent as possible. And hopefully that means in their own home, with their own community, et cetera. And so we are an area agency on aging. We get federal dollars that come in, and we have an information and assistance line, which essentially is the first place for everyone to start. And it's 222-4111. Again, 222-4111. And that's just the best place to start because there's so many different services that it's helpful just to call and explain what are the issues that you're facing, and then we can talk to you about the services that are available. But it could
Okay.
be everything from Meals on Wheels, and we partner with MIFA on that. It could be that you need even just connections to local senior centers, right? You need connection. Sometimes we forget that isolation is actually what's hurting us a lot of
Right.
times. And isolation is really a really big problem with our older folks. Making sure they stay connected with the community.
What about individuals who are aging and they may need, let's say, something fixed around the house? Is that something that your division does, or is there a place in the Shelby County government that houses that type of service?
And then as far as that support, so oftentimes, so if you call our information assistance line and we
Mhm.
don't do it, we're going to try to find you somebody who does. right?
All
Because we're not
right.
going to say no, good luck, bye. So we're really going to try to connect you with somebody. And so what I know off the top of my head, there are some CDCs and community development corporations that have some
Uh-huh.
funding for that. There's also Habitat for Humanity that has some funding for that. And then there's funding in unincorporated Shelby County as well. There's
Uh-huh.
less funding in the city. It's very odd the way the funding works, but our information assistance line is the first place to start with anything, any kind of outlier need that you think similar to that, like I
Yeah.
need my roof repaired because I might lose my house if I don't, get my roof repaired. Start with our information assistance line.
And I know I can vouch for you because I've sent you individuals who's reached out to me who may or may not live in my district, and I referred them to you. And within 24 hours, your office was in contact with them and trying to provide them the service they need. So again, I can vouch that you all respond. And when someone's in a crisis, they need help right then and there. And so I do appreciate that. And as far as the veterans, I'm very concerned about the veterans as well. We're seeing a lot of individuals unhoused, and many times there are veterans, there are individuals who might be suffering from mental health issues and need to be stabilized. As far as the unhoused, what type of services do you offer them?
So our veteran services team, I think we're up to 10 veteran service officers now, which is amazing. Commissioner Mills has worked really hard during her
Yes,
tenure on
ma'am.
the commission to beef up that team. When I started in 2017, there was one. Now there's 10. So yeah, huge difference. So we are the VSO, the veteran service officers meet with the veterans, figure out what benefits they may be eligible for. When you're leaving the service, leaving the military, things are kind of confusing and complicated, and maybe people didn't sign up for all the benefits that they were eligible for. And so we assess what their needs are, we help them reapply for benefits and see if they may be eligible for more. In some cases we've had huge life-changing experiences, hundreds more dollars a month coming in the door. And in other times, we're at least able to say, okay, well, you've got all your benefits, but here we also know veteran service nonprofits in the community. And so, to your point about unhoused veterans or people with veterans suffering from mental health issues, there are nonprofits in our community that help those folks. So we have like Alpha Omega Veteran Services as an example. That has a really great homeless services program. We've got other partners in Alliance Healthcare. And, there's just a whole bunch of different partners who are working with veterans. And so our VSOs can connect people with other services, even if we don't do it, we try to make the connections.
Crime victims and the rape crisis. Can you talk about that? What services you offer to individuals as far as supports?
So the Crime Victims and Rape Crisis Center, like I said earlier, is what I moved here for. So I was there for
Mhm.
5 years. It was a big chunk of my life during the COVID pandemic and everything else. They're a great agency of about 45 employees, and they're serving almost 4,000 victims every year.
Wow.
They're working really hard over there. So we provide everything from immediate crisis intervention. So when, we used to say when you call 911, everyone knows after a crime, call 911, right? We know law
Mhm.
enforcement's going to come out. They're going to do what they're going to do. They leave, but then the now what? And the
Right.
Crime Victims and Rape Crisis Center is the now what? So call us. We're going to do some basic crisis intervention. We're going to talk to you about how the crime impacted your life. How does trauma impact you? What else is going on in your life that may be impacted because of this crime? Was your door broken into? And now we need to look at getting you some new locks for your door. Was your car broken into? Is there a way we can connect you with a church to help, help supplement some of the funding to get that fixed? If it was a crime and law enforcement did decide to arrest or to file charges on the case, we're going to stick with that survivor, that victim survivor, the entire way through the court case. And so we're going to walk with them through the system, which is very confusing for a lot of victims
Mhm.
because they've never, we've all seen Law and Order, but unfortunately the system doesn't really work that quickly or that well. So, we're going to walk the many year process getting through a criminal trial, but we're also going to provide throughout that time trauma counseling. We're going to provide some psychoeducation, maybe some crime victim compensation. There is some opportunity to get reimbursed for any expenses that are related to your crime. So we're going to walk you through everything that you possibly, need as you recover and as you heal from victimization.
I mean, there's a plethora of things. I'm just picking a few things. As far as pretrial services, how do you help people with pretrial services, and who will qualify for that?
Our pretrial services and our behavioral health services, we have two
Uh-huh.
different teams over there at 201 Poplar. They are both for justice involved adults. Essentially, pretrial services is a variety of things, but they are the people that every arrestee, if you get arrested for a crime, you go to 201, you're going to talk to one of our pretrial services staff because our pretrial services interviews everybody and learns about their background, learns about their psychosocial, all the stuff's going on in their life. And they present that packet once they get all that information along with their criminal history. They present that to the judge, and the judge, it's really judicial commissioner, decides whether or not they get bail or bond. And so we're the ones that create the packet for the judge and for the commissioner to make that determination. So that's just at the very beginning. We also have staff that work with folks pretrial and post adjudication both on probation. So if the judge orders any kind of treatment program or anything like that, we make sure that it happens. We also provide some of those treatment programs ourselves. We have lots of different classes going on all the time: anger management, domestic violence classes, just a wide variety of things that we're able to do. And essentially, what we're trying to do is keep people out of the jail
Uh-huh.
while also continuing to hold them accountable. We know accountability matters, but we're going to do it compassionately and we want to keep them out of the jail if possible.
Okay, so I would like to kind of leave that. I mean, we can go on and on
Mhm.
because your division offers so many services, but for a second, I want to look at Tool and Poplar and the number of individuals that are entering, and it's increasing. It's a strain on the services. And so I was wondering, how are you able to manage the influx of individuals going through Tool and Poplar? Or have you seen, for example, a strain on, as far as the resources? The second thing I want you to look at is with the cuts. We're having a lot of federal cuts, for all kinds of services, and it's really impacted us locally as far as what we can do. And I was just wondering your thought process on that. And if people want to, for example, volunteer or give support, how can they support or fill these gaps that are coming up?
So I'll start with the first one because we were just talking about pretrial services. So one thing I will say is just pray for my pretrial team because a lot of the first responders, law enforcement, even prosecutors, but law enforcement. When we think about first responders, we know that they get overtime pay. We want to make sure that we're supporting our first responders. I think we often forget about our second responders, which are people like my
Uh,
pretrial team. So our pretrial team is pretty small. It's like 30 staff running 24/7, 365 to make sure they do all of those jail interviews. And like you said, the jail interviews have increased by about 40% now. So they're seeing about 40% more people every year or every week, I should say.
wow.
And they're doing that with the same amount of staff, no additional resources, no overtime. And so, what I'm concerned about, obviously, as the leader, is their burnout rates. I mean, I don't have backups. These are people that are trained to do this, that have the skills, in some cases have long histories of working here. But we are seeing burnout at this point because we're asking them to
Mhm.
do a lot more with no additional resources or support. And so that is, I mean, obviously we're supporting them, but it just, as far as resources go, staffing, that kind of stuff, there just isn't any. And so that's been very difficult. Just in general, to your point about federal cuts, one of the things that has been difficult over the last year is really the unknown. So
Right.
we hear that, for example, the president's going to cut LIHEAP, which is our utility assistance program. When he first got in office, he said, I'm going to cut it completely. And we just all, because we know how many people rely on us for utility assistance every year.
Right.
And that's to keep the lights on, that's to keep their medical machines working, that's to keep the heat or air on when necessary. And so that can be life threatening if people don't have their utilities. And so that was really stressful. Now, in
Yeah.
the end, they passed it. It's working. We still have the program, and so it's okay. But it was just the unknown there for a while. The same was true for our rental assistance. So people that
Mhm.
get rental assistance to help them pay their rent in case something happened in their life that made them maybe miss work for some time or something like that. That was also in jeopardy for a while. We didn't know if it would come, and then because of that, it was actually delayed in coming. It should have started in October. We didn't really start it until January because of all of the back and forth about policies and whether or not it be funded and that kind of stuff. So it's been a lot of pins sitting on pins and needles, like, ooh, are we actually going to get this money in the door? And then when we get the money in the door, how do we get it out the door as fast as possible? So that's what we've been working through. And one more example, the Aging Commission also had a situation with SNAP. So while we don't do SNAP, SNAP is food assistant, food stamps, essentially. While the state of Tennessee is responsible for SNAP, our Aging Commission has a SNAP coordinator, liaison person who helps older people apply for it.
Mhm.
And for a while, we were told you can't have it. You can't spend that money. We don't think SNAP is gonna be in existence in the future. And so we had to take that employee and move her to another grant for a while. Luckily, we had another grant we could do that with because the aging commission is big, but we had to move that employee for a while. We had to stop all SNAP work, and then luckily we've been able to move her back, and she's back to doing the SNAP work. But it's those things where it's just like the unknown, the
Yeah.
uncertainty. It's just so chaotic. Our job is already hard, right? Like we don't need to make it harder for our staff to do this, and so it has been tough.
Wow. And so, people don't think, I say, okay, we have the National Guards here, we have the other federal agencies here, and they think, okay, the streets are fine. But even before they came, we were seeing record lows in crime, 25% lows. And now the strain, but we're paying for that. We're paying for resources as far as personnel, to your point, as far as the resources that could be cut. It's got to be stressful. So let me ask you this. I know it's hard to predict what's going to be cut and how, the impact of things of that nature, but are you planning as far as reaching out to the commission for maybe, putting you all into the state legislative agenda or the federal legislative agenda as far as to give you more support? I remember a year or two ago, we put the youth services federal legislative agenda. And I was just wondering if your thought process as we go, getting ready to start the legislative agenda process.
So we certainly are open to any ideas. We have in the past, as you said, asked for our Youth and Family Resource Center to get funded through the feds, but also through the state. We're doing our best right now through the Youth and Family Resource Center is funded with ARPA funds. And so this year is a critical time to do that. And so we will be probably coming to you all and getting on the legislative agenda for either the feds or the state, whoever's going to pay for it, we're fine with. And then also asking the county to sustain that because we have proven that it works. Now that we were able to use ARPA funds, which is COVID dollars, to start a new project, but now we need to continue it, and so now we need to make sure it's sustainable. And so we will definitely be exploring all of our options, and we braid funding throughout the division. Like almost 80% of all of our funds in my division are grant funded. We are definitely reliant on the feds and the state to get us
Mhm.
that money.
Right, and I understand. I was on another podcast with Dr. Browning, and she's a grant reviewer, and she's written many books. And she was saying that they're no longer earmarking funds, and that is true because when I went to the federal government, we asked them to earmark money to come to Shelby County because many times the money will go to the state, and we don't get our fair share, and sometimes nothing at all. And I say that they're pivoting towards more like programs. So, like programs is something that maybe we could beef up as opposed to just giving resources. And that's something that the grants are geared towards now, I understand. And so I would, like to work with you to beef up some of your programs because, to your point, the money might be here today. It may be cut completely or some tomorrow. And so I would love for you to go ahead and submit something to, I believe, is it Commissioner Morrison? I think she's still the chair.
Yeah.
And so go ahead and submit something in writing now, sooner than later, of things that we can do support your ask from both the federal and the state government. And then that, as you do so well, as far as the data to show the increase of the need, that's been put on us because of the National Guard, because of the federal cuts, et cetera. If you could put that in a graph or whatever, put the numbers together, that would be most helpful. And I definitely would support, you in your work as well as everybody responsible for helping the people in our communities. And as far as the county is concerned, I don't know if you listen, but almost every commission meeting, I say, "We're broke, we're broke, we're broke." We have not increased property taxes in 20 years, and so we've had to cut, cut, cut. That's not gonna be the case in the future. I don't know how much we can cut. We're at the bare bones, especially with the increases that the National Guard's putting on us, as well as the other federal agencies, and we're hearing the issues from business owners who are seeing their businesses, go down, or all these different things are really putting a strain on all resources. And so, as far as the county's concerned, it's going to be very, very limited. I mean, you can ask, but unless we increase property taxes, it's just not there. It's not. And so, I would support you as far as trying to get grants from both the state and the federal level of government. We have to cut some other corners or cut some other things. We will, but community service is something that I support and I will not cut. But I'm just saying, you know, at this point, what are we to do? I mean, we're in this together. I can
Right.
listen to my constituents and you all take care of them, but we want I want to be able to continue to do that. And so if you can come up creatively of, how we can support you on your work and the division and all these different areas that you cover for the individuals, reach out to the commission because we've got your back. We really do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And you had asked earlier, Commissioner, about what constituents can do to help. What we really encourage folks to do, because we can't accept donations, nor do we don't really have volunteer opportunities as well. But we work really closely with our nonprofits throughout the community. And so places like My Fund that we contract to do the Meals on Wheels, we say we contract with them, but to be honest with you, the money that we pay them is not enough to cover the full cost of the program. So they have to raise the rest of the money themselves. So a place like MIFA is a great place to give donations. It's also a great place to go volunteer, but it really could be any nonprofit of your choice because that's who we rely upon. That's the safety net, like you said earlier, is all of us together. And
Right.
so, if you could go to your local nonprofit, figure out what your community groups are doing and help them, that will help us in the end.
Let me ask you this because you have a very stressful job. So, what are your coping mechanisms? Can you share with us?
Yeah, this job has been rather intense. I would say coping mechanisms are one, leaving work at work when I can. Now that's not always possible because sometimes people will call you after hours, but leaving work at work is important. I would say I'm very lucky that I've worked in the crime victim services field for so long that we've been talking about self-care and vicarious trauma and all that stuff for years and years and years. I've done my therapy. I know when things get bad. I will revisit therapy. I will revisit the things that bring me joy. I know, like for example, Friday nights. I know that there is nothing I will schedule on a Friday night because I am so wiped out. I
Yeah.
I can barely string a sentence together oftentimes by Friday night. So I just make sure I know that I go home and I watch trash TV and I eat some pizza and I call it a week. So there's a lot of things that you sort of just have to know yourself and get to learn yourself and what is healthy for you because each person is different. That's one way I cope. Obviously, I love to laugh. I mean, I know that sounds maybe a little odd, somebody who works with victims of crime and
Hmm.
trauma and all this other stuff, but I just think it's so important to have fun at work. It's so important to infuse fun in everything that you do. So we like to laugh around here and we like to make sure that we appreciate our employees too. And my employees appreciate me. I mean, we definitely we keep up that culture so that we can keep ourselves going.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. It's not easy. I couldn't do your job, honestly, but we just want to tell you thank you, thank you, thank you. Take care of yourself. We want to keep you around for a long, long time, especially as we go through this crisis. Thank you, and just stay strong, stay encouraged, and know that you have a friend. We have friends with the commission.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you. Bye bye.